I don't think my approach is terribly intellectual to my enjoyment of music, and I like a nice tune. Give us tunes.
Hi, I'm Scott. You're watching Inside Musicals, the channel for all things musical theatre. This is part 3 of my chat with operatic mezzo-soprano Dimity Shepherd. Today we delve into the hierarchy of opera, the value of age, balancing the musicality and drama in the voice, and we also ask, is opera dead? So who do you work with most closely in rehearsal? Would it be the repetiteur, the conductor, the director, the other performers?
So different rooms have different sort of centres of power.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly as opera singers, we've got a lot of masters we're trying to serve. So the conductor and the director are the most obvious ones.
Of the two of them, who usually wins?
Well, it can be really different, but probably in opera more often, probably the conductor. But the best rooms are when you've got two exciting leaders who are listening to each other and being respectful in that regard. But human beings are complicated, and powerful creatures like conductors and directors can be complicated too, that's for sure. And we've also usually got a language person in the room if it's, if we're singing in another language. And sometimes you can have, a language person who's really assertive, and your brain can, you're juggling a lot of different requests usually out there. There's the way you want to sing it, then there's the way the conductor would like you to sing it, and then there's the vocal coach you worked with who had a different idea to that conductor and to you, that taught you something else. And then there's the director, and then there's who has an idea of the character that's different to your idea of the character, but all of that's going on.
Well, I was going to ask that in terms of standard repertoire, again, there's a weight of tradition in a lot of those things. How much room is there to move? Is tradition a good thing because that informs an approach, or is it a restriction?
It's a really good question. I feel it's interesting to me now. I'm becoming very aware as a woman who's 54 now that I feel quite political about being a woman of 54 in the world and on the stage. And in the traditional repertoire, the main roles tend to be for the sort of young woman role. And that's interesting because we see these beautiful young talents who are there looking beautiful with beautiful fresh voices doing things, but there's also less experience there. And then the older roles are often you can be more likely to be a smaller role, and you're more likely to be a witch or a maid, or that sort
So
of
what
thing.
is the life cycle of an opera singer in terms of, like, if we think of ballet, for instance, you probably retire very quickly. In musical theatre too, a lot of the leads tend to be the romantic leads, so they tend to be younger.
That's right.
I imagine it must be similar in opera to a degree.
Yes, it's similar, but is
there more room for age?
I've always believed there is, because there are roles that really you need vocal growth to get to be able to sing, and there is some repertoire that just you can't really do when you're super young, and you need older chords to really pull off.
So when is a voice considered mature?
Well, I think it depends on voice type a bit, because like soubrettes tend to mature younger. A voice like mine, it really has taken a long time, and I feel like I actually really do believe I'm singing my best now. My voice is different. There are some things I did better when I had a younger, fresher voice, but many things that I used to dream of singing some things that I can sing now, and I never thought I'd get there, and now I can sing them, and that's sort of really wonderful. But a female voice finishes growing at about 26 properly, I think, or something like that. But that doesn't mean that you're technically at your best yet. Then I think your late 30s are great singing years. I think, like I said, I feel I'm 54, and I feel like in many ways I'm the best singer I've been now. I have also just gone through menopause, and that's a really tricky change in your whole body.
Does it
to
change the
experience.
voice?
And it does change your voice. So I think some people experience big vocal changes and others not so much. Again, menopause is a tricky beast and it seems to be different for everybody. But it's certainly, I mean, I really do feel like I'm a different physical creature entirely in many ways on the other side of it. And that's so fascinating. It's like, what a trip. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, for a voice like mine, there's some good benefits coming from it as well, and from just aging in general. And I really do believe that when we're talking about diversity, and our stages are becoming more diverse, and that's happening everywhere, including opera. But I think age diversity needs to be a big part of that discussion, and sometimes the thing that's left out. And while young, beautiful women are gorgeous, and I've certainly benefited enormously at times from being a young, beautiful woman in the past, I believe we need to see people of all ages on the stage. I want to see that our society reflected in that way as well. Now, there can be, issues with health and longevity in some ways for people, but I've never felt like I should move off the stage because I'm getting older. I don't feel like I've got less to offer.
If a lot of those roles are for, say, younger characters, is that why we often see opera singers maybe doing more concert work as they get older?
And I think that's what we need. We actually need to create new roles.
So what does modern opera look like?
Well, it looks like a whole lot of different things, some of which is wonderful and some of which is not, I mean, I did my own show for the first time this year, which I wouldn't describe as a modern opera, but it's got, there are operatic elements in it and some distinctly non-operatic elements in it as well. But I think we need to carve the space for us to stay on the stage, and that I want to see an opera that's about older characters as well. I mean, I want to see 65-year-olds on the stage as well. There are 65-year-olds who still sing really well. There are plenty that probably don't too. But if you stay working and then that the age on the voice can be an interesting thing to have up there as well. And it's like, I don't believe in personally taking away my own lines on my face and things like that either. I feel like this is who I am and what I'm becoming, and I feel like there's a story in that's as interesting or more interesting than just being the young new thing.
In terms of modern opera and maybe composers, is there something that they don't understand about the voice that you'd say, I wish I could work with you through the process?
Some contemporary composers are really good at writing for the voice, and I've had great experiences of that, of things being written for me where they have fit me really well, and it's felt really, an honour to sing them, and I've thought, thank God this was written for me. Some really good examples of that. But I've also certainly had the opposite experience where, I think it's really hard to understand how to write for the voice, and different voices are so different.
Because it's not an absolute pitch like an instrument.
No, that's right.
And so often navigating intervals.
When I was a lot younger, and the first time I had people write roles for me, they would say to me, what's your highest note, what's your lowest note, kind of thing, and I would tell them, and there were quite a lot of examples where the opera would come back and would sit up here and down there, and I'd be like, oh my God, and you want to live here and then just go up and down a bit, but that would be the way it was. And now if I know someone's writing for me, I'm much more like, look, I need the meat and potatoes of it to be here. But I'd love to get out a bit of that and a bit of that, and that's the way the greats wrote. There's,
Through the 20th century, a lot of composers for orchestra kind of rejected tonality and melody. Maybe the last decade or so, a lot of them are kind of really appreciating melodic lines.
Oh, thank God, yeah.
Is that also true of opera writers? Like, if you think of an archetypal modern opera,
Squeaky.
One of the marks of it can be that more kind of declamatory, without those glorious vocal
Yes.
lines that show off the voice so well that the
Yeah.
standard repertoire
Yeah.
does so well.
So look, there's a place for I'm going to be cheeky and call it squeaky bonk. And of course I actually think sometimes music that can be quite challenging to the ear when you first hear it sounds more and more melodic the more you're bathing in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do find that happens to me with a lot of contemporary music like that. But I also really do feel at this point, like when things are just impossibly difficult for the sake of being difficult and there's no beauty in it, I'm a bit over that personally. And different composers write in different ways, and I like to sing a tune, and I feel like my body and my voice relax when I'm singing a tune, as opposed to having to sort of actually intellectually be pitching particular intervals and look,
To fight to find the logic in those sounds.
It's a personal thing, but I think I'm learning about myself. I don't think my approach is terribly intellectual to my enjoyment of music, and I like a nice tune. Give us tunes.
How much does your performance change from working with a repetitor at a piano to stepping in front of the orchestra?
It's a massive change. So in the first learning of singing something, I enter thinking about the technique of the vocal stuff.
Mm.
My first point of starting is always, can I physically achieve this with my voice?
Yeah.
So I'm always working on all those technical things. And then once we get on the floor to rehearse, it totally flips over for me. And so whereas I've worked out the perfect way I think I should sing it, then once I'm on the floor, the drama takes over totally for me. And then I will often, actually to my vocal detriment, make choices because the actor in me just takes over and makes my voice do things that I didn't expect or hadn't planned and put in. And that's being a stage animal, I guess, and that's thrilling, but it can also be vocally at something I have to watch.
So what is that balance between the musicality and the drama? Because I know, I'm just thinking about the movie coming out shortly about Maria Callas.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that.
One of her defining features was that she would sacrifice some of the beauty for the drama.
Absolutely.
And that was kind of controversial at the time.
Yeah.
How do you find that balance for you?
I definitely do that. I can't help myself. It's just, I just go into the drama. As I say, sometimes to my detriment, as an opera singer, frankly, because,
in terms of the safety of the voice?
Yes. There have been times when I've been performing big roles and I've done something too risky vocally because I'm so caught in the drama. So when I observe some of my most stunning opera colleagues, I often feel like they've got a little bit more of a protective veil around keeping in the voice department rather than just going straight into that other space. So I think the way that my instinct is to sing with too much brute force when I was younger, and I try and I'm always trying to sort of say to myself, don't go to 100%, sit back. But my nature is to go too far. And I do think that gives me probably a kind of excitement to watch on stage that probably is also one of the reasons probably that I get employed when I do. But I think that's the thing I have to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
but it's also the bit that feels really good.
Well,
when you're in that space where you just want to go with the drama.
Well, it's one of those moments where you're in the flow. It's like any creative process when you're kind of in the flow and you're part of the conversation, part of the communication.
Yeah. I feel, exciting. You want to be a pliable creature so that you can do a director's vision and disappear and become the characters and all that sort of stuff. But I feel like as I'm staying longer in this profession, I'm getting more determined about what I think about things and stuff like that. And sometimes I think, I hope I'm not becoming difficult or something, because I'll get really passionate about an idea about a character, and then if it's different to the way the director sees it or something, that can feel a really hard conflict for me now.
Particularly when you bring a lifetime of experience.
Yeah. So people always refer to the designer and the conductor and the director and things as the creatives, but we're the creatives too.
You're inhabiting.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's the magic to step into someone else's shoes. I mean, that is the most profound honour, to imagine yourself into another world and another person.
When I work with singers, because I work from story first, because that helps you make the technical choices. It's like when the singer's saying, well, how do I interpret this? What do I do technically? And I say, well, go back to story.
Yeah.
Let that be the guide for the choices you make. Sometimes you have to go the other way. This is the only way I can achieve it technically. How do I make that work from a story point of view? But they're not separate things.
I feel like the more I do this, the more I feel like it is almost like a kind of weird magic, like that inhabiting of the character space. First learn all your notes, practice how to sing the notes, but then the minute you start really layering in the feeling world of what is this character feeling and everything, that's when the magic happens. And that space is quite oogly-boogly to me. I don't think it is, maybe for every artist is different, but for me, that's why I don't even know how to really explain that.
Well, it's an intuitive place.
It's so intuitive.
Yeah.
And it's like it's something really in the gut. And sometimes putting on a particular pair of shoes or something will suddenly give you the world. It's really weird, the things that will give you the world. Sometimes it's a memory of some line that the character says that stands out as something you understand from your life, from a particular moment in your life, and you go, that's the key. And then you just enter that key and then turn it, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, what just happened? And you suddenly know.
Makes sense.
And it's like, that's when the hairs stand up on your arms or whatever, and that's when, you think, oh, something good's happening here.
Because an audience, what we're looking for is a connection. And in a way, the performer is the stand-in.
That's right. So they can recognise their own experiences and things. Yes, that's right.
Now, coming back to just industry, how many performances does an average opera production run?
So what we've seen in the time that I've been an opera singer is that, in general, there are less performances of things. So, again, of course, there's exceptions to this, but an average contract for an opera is a lot shorter than it used to be. And that's really problematic for, our earning. We have less rehearsal time often and less performances. And so in extreme versions of what I've done in the last few years, I've learnt like a big role in another language that's been, months of work, and rehearsed it in only, 2 weeks max, I think, and then done one performance of it.
That's not sustainable for a freelance performer.
Well, and that is unfortunately a lot of what even pre-COVID was looking like that, but the post-COVID landscape is pretty devastating. I'm someone who's been in this industry for 30 years, and it's always been tricky, but it's definitely harder than it's ever been in that way. And we're just, to get enough financial reward when you are doing the work to kind of sustain yourself is really, really difficult. So, I've got a second job at the moment that I once wouldn't have needed. And the juggle is real.
It's a shift of gears, isn't it?
Yeah, and of course, there's been some silver linings too. Again, it makes you grow as a person in different ways. A lot about this career, I think, is quite humbling.
When we think opera, we think glamour, divas.
Yeah.
But actually, it's a big slog.
It's a big slog. And I think, I often think about what I put on Instagram, and I put all my shiny on Instagram, you know, and my life looks, I think, probably pretty fabulous on Instagram. And that's true, but it's only part of the story. There's a huge other side that's of hard work and exhaustion and compromise and a lot of humbling experiences on the other side as well, as a part of the price of doing it. And yeah, that's not getting easier.
Because music theatre is hard for performers, but at least with the big shows, there's opportunity for a 12, 18-month contract. Right. So you have some job security, at least for that period.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's even more for such short-term opportunities.
It's hard. So, you know, I'd love to get into a musical now and have a long run or something just to relax financially a little bit more for a little while. But, you know, even in music theatre, it's the model's shifting to be a 9-show week instead of an 8-show week, which is just
and also slightly shorter rehearsals.
Cruel, and shorter rehearsals and less money there too than it used to be. So, you know, again, it's like it's just bloody tough out there.
And over the past couple of decades, in Australia at least, I'm not sure how it is elsewhere, we're seeing frequently co-productions between musical theatre producers and some of the opera companies to put on, whether it's Sweeney Todd, some of Rodgers and Hammerstein.
Yeah.
What is the perception of those from an opera performer point of view? Is it an opportunity, or is it like...
It's controversial in the opera world because it is... I mean,
it's not always utilising their people.
No, that's right. I feel like there used to be more of a thing when opera companies did musicals that they would use more classical voices in them than tends to be happening now. So that is controversial with my opera singer mates for sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, we also understand, I think, that those big musical numbers are often more successful at the box office. And so that's why the opera companies are doing them.
To help fund the other productions.
Yeah, that's and if it does help fund the other productions, there's a justification for that there. But it's certainly controversial. Yeah.
So, what is the future of opera? What does the opera world look like as a performer?
I don't know.
You were talking before about...
I don't know. I think it's in trouble. I think it's in trouble, and I don't think I have all the answers. I mean, I think opera will continue to exist. It always will. But in terms of like whether there's a career to be had here as an opera singer, it's getting really, it's so difficult, and I'm not sure. I really fear for the young ones coming in. I do.
And the tough thing is, it's such a specialised, technically demanding arena without the work to support it. How do you maintain those skills?
They're very hard to answer those questions. I mean, I'd like to see new operas being created that actually get some traction with new audiences and that we can build our art form and the appreciation for it. And that's certainly, I've got a lot of people I know working hard in that space to try and make that happen.
What do you think
it's hard.
What do you think are some of the common misconceptions about opera from like a non-opera public?
I think the misconception is that it's ugly singing. Is definitely a misconception, but I think some people think that. I think people think that they won't relate to the stories when the stories are about love and passion and death and sex and
some of them are very funny.
Families and exactly, all of the good stuff. So it's just another form of storytelling, and the stories are great epic stories. I do think those opera stories are still relevant.
If someone was choosing between writing a musical and writing an opera, which are both storytelling through music...
Why is one thing and why is one the other?
Yeah. What is the key differences that an audience could come to that new opera and say, oh, I get it. I can see that it's opera, that it's not a musical, but I get it.
So, I mean, the key difference between opera and music theatre is always to me that music theatre has a spoken stuff and then it stops for a song, then it speaks and then it stops for a song. Whereas opera just is a sung story all the way through. That's essentially the basic difference.
Because
what I was going to say would sound controversial.
What? No, say it. I can always cut it.
I was going to say, well, look, it's like classical dance versus other kinds of dance. One's not better than the other,
but
they're different. But in terms of the sort of ultimate expression of technical ability. Classical dance is probably, is it? Oh no, see, it's not. It's just different.
Actually, there's a really good parallel, I think, between
Yeah.
classical ballet and opera and
Yeah.
other art forms, in that both opera and classical ballet are the parents of other art forms.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether audiences haven't kept up with how those old art forms continue to develop because audiences have followed the offshoots instead. I wonder whether there's something in that. Because I think there's something about the appreciation of the voices as well. I think that's the distinction, because musical theatre will even using that range of voice types, there's a different sound.
Yeah.
Like if we had a musical theatre company performing music from an opera, it would sound very different. Even if they had exactly the same ranges, stylistically it's very different.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
And vice versa, yeah, exactly. It wouldn't work
So
easily.
maybe for audiences, understanding what is the language of that voice, that vocal sound.
Yeah.
And how do we appreciate that for what it is?
That's right. I don't know. I hope my little show is like a gateway drug to opera for people. I don't know if it is though. I don't know.
So that's all for this interview. You might want to check out some of my other conversations. But please show Dimity some love in the comments, and you can follow her on Instagram at Dimity Shepherd. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I do love you.